right, the next team to talk about is, I think, pretty unanimously the expected last place finisher in the SEC West, and that's Auburn. They're bringing in their head coach Hugh Freeze, who had quite a run in the SEC a while back. Ended in controversy a little bit, but he put the pieces back together at Liberty. Kind of built that program from the ground up, and is now making his returns here at Auburn. I think the question for him is, what should we expect? Is he still sharp enough to compete with SEC teams? He showed that, he could get 2 or 3 games on the calendar against some high-profile teams at Liberty and pull some upsets. But is he ready to face that SEC schedule again? I think he is. I think he's been kind of sitting in the corner waiting for his turn. And, he kind of had a reputation as the guy who beat Nick Saban when he was at Ole Miss. He did it a couple times. But I think that's a good hire ultimately for Auburn. A lot of people are probably not going to love it just based on the personality and some of his interpersonal history.
Kind of a not a good guy. Maybe put him in the Urban Meyer category, in the bad guy category.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. But I think X's and O's and on the football field, I think he's a really good hire for
Bad
Auburn.
guys can be good football coaches.
It's true. If Urban Meyer didn't teach you that, then I don't know who will. Kind of the big question marks, and a little bit of it's been settled actually, even since I took the show notes today. The quarterback competition. They brought in a transfer who has a lot of experience in Peyton Thorne. He's played a lot of games for Michigan State. Fortunately or unfortunately, he moved out to Auburn. I think a lot of Michigan State fans were actually secretly a little bit happy because he hasn't been the best quarterback there at Michigan State, but he is very experienced. And then Robbie Ashford started a lot of games for Auburn last year. There was kind of some murmurs for the younger prospect Holden Garner to get some run this year. I think just as of today, really, Hugh Freeze kind of whittled it down to just being between Ashford and Peyton Thorne for that starting job. But don't be too shocked if you see Holden Garner get a shot later in the season, especially if the season goes as poorly as we expect.
Yeah, he's definitely. I would expect him to get some run in some of the blowout games as well this year. Whoever the true backup is, I think they go to that third string pretty quickly just to get him some reps as they look towards the future. But yeah, Auburn, it's kind of weird to see them in this position. We got kind of used to them for being up there and competing for this SEC West title every year. I just truly don't think Hugh Freeze is ready to run from the front as he's going to have to at Auburn. As you mentioned, some success surprising people while at Liberty, but I think it's a totally different story when you're placed back in the SEC West. And really, do you have the Jimmies and the Joes to go compete in the SEC West? And potentially, yes, they do, but I just don't think that they have the star power at the right positions to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think you saw a lot of that last year. And I don't know that it's going to be too much different this year. They kind of seemed physically outmatched, especially when you're talking about those big matchups with LSU, Alabama. They get Georgia every year, which is kind of a tough draw for them out of the West. But yeah, I mean, just the kind of quality of talent, the athletic talent there didn't seem on par last year with what we're used to at Auburn. They brought some guys in the transfer portal, and they've got a really strong running back room this year, but at the same time, it's still, I think, an uphill climb. I think it's going to take a year, maybe 2 years before Hugh Freeze gets a team that he's ready to compete with. The one thing that I think they're going to really excel at this year is running the ball. Jarquez Hunter played fantastically last year. Tank Bigsby obviously was a huge star for Auburn, but
Dog.
Jarquez Hunter kind of played number 2 for him last year, and he did a really, really great job. They've got a young guy in Damari Alston who's going to look like he's going to get a lot of carries this year, and he looks kind of ready for action as well. And then they actually brought in kind of a sneaky under the radar transfer in Brian Battie from South Florida, who's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife. He's pretty good in the receiving game. He's a great returner, and he put up over 1,000 yards rushing. Kind of one of the more smaller, speedy kind of running back molds. But I mean,
Probably a guy you're going to see them try and get his hands on the ball on the outside, maybe bubble screen, kind of like that Z type
yeah,
H back type that role.
Yeah, but just however you can get the ball in his hands, just make it happen,
Get the
screen
ball in that
passes and
guy's
things like
hands because
that.
he can make some plays, and I think truly in college football, I think that's kind of what it's all about. Get the get the ball in the hands of your playmakers and let them make plays.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the team looks like under Hugh Freeze. I think we're both kind of on the train of, I don't think I see bowl eligibility in the picture for Auburn. Maybe if they didn't get that draw of Georgia every year on the East, they may finish with 6. But I think you're going to see a 3, 4, 5 win season from Auburn this year. But they're worth keeping an eye on. I think it'll be fun to see what Hugh Freeze looks like back in the SEC.
Yeah, I give Auburn a chance. I'll give them a chance that they get to 6 wins, but would not be surprised if they do not make a bowl game. And I don't think that's a huge disappointment in Hugh Freeze's first year. I think maybe some Auburn fans may not really like it in the win now kind of culture that we're getting into, but I think next year and especially the year after, year 3 for Hugh Freeze is kind of a turning point.